Well, hello everyone. It's Just Dwayne. Let's talk some gear. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining. I decided to try to build a bridge hammock because I like to sleep on my stomach, and it seems that the only type of hammock that really allows you to try to do that is a bridge hammock. So, don't know how well it's going to work out, but it should be fun to give it a try, and I'll tell you how I'm doing it. I've learned a lot from a bunch of different folks, Grizzly Adams, TeeDee, bunch of folks on HammockForums.net that, just like always, have been extremely helpful. So I love my gathered end hammocks, but they don't let me sleep on my stomach, and while you get used to it after a couple of days, I'd still rather sleep on my stomach if I can, so I figured I'd give it a shot. So I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for coming. Okay, as far as making the hammock body goes, I wanted a hammock that would be 80 inches by 44 inches when it was finished, and I wanted the arc to be 6 inches arc on either side, so I'd end up with 32 inches wide in the middle. So I started with a square of material 82 inches long by 48 inches wide. I planned a 1 inch hem allowance for the head and foot ends. I planned 2 inches for each of the arcs. So what I did was I created out of paper a half parabola using the formulas I got from Grizzly Adams, Professor Hammock, out on the forum. So once I had the bridge side arc cut out, what I did was I folded my 82 by 48 inch piece of fabric so that it would be perfectly symmetrical. Once I cut that out, it gave me a symmetrical parabola both end to end and side to side, since I was cutting it all at one time. So then what I did was I started hemming, and what I did was I hemmed 1/4 of an inch all the way around, and then for the foot end I folded again 3/8 inches on both sides. On the arc side I gave it a 3/4 of an inch fold, and what that did for me was it gave me 2 layers of fabric that ultimately would become the channel. So once I had that 3/4 of an inch sewn on the arcs, then I folded it in half again. And then what I did was I just took a piece of wire that I had, folded it in half, taped the end, and I fed the side channel cordage through there. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about some of the features that I've put in. I'm going to show some close-ups of stuff later. I'll just try to give a general overview of what I've done and what I'm trying to accomplish right now. You'll see that there are no end caps. The reason I decided to not do any end caps is, well, a lot of the year, at least down here, it's pretty hot, and so the more breeze you have, the better. And I think I can come up with a bug net that will protect me all the way around, and I don't need to have those pieces closed off. I made my own whoopee slings. The reason I did that is I wanted to have a soft shackle to connect to the diamond knot of my triangle, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that whenever I show the close-ups. The 2 triangles, they end in a soft shackle. I took what Grizzly Adams showed in one of his videos, where he puts a soft shackle on to hook to the diamond knot, and instead of having a larger 2.5 inch feed in and out for that soft shackle, I decided to make mine 3/4 of an inch, and that works really well with this 3/8 inch size for the spreader bars. So I didn't have to tie anything extra, It's just the soft shackle part at the end of the suspension triangle, and then of course I buried it going to there. So then I have hiking poles. I use Wally World poles. I have an oak dowel in there, and I'll show you that shortly. One problem that I did have is when I first sat down in the hammock, what I was afraid of did happen, which is the material all slid downhill towards the middle, and I was kind of afraid that that would happen. So what I ended up doing was I sewed on Grosgain tab, and then that goes not over, you know, the springy part of the suspension spreader pull, but rather towards the end where it should be solid enough to handle. It seems to be okay right now. So I hooked it right over the tip of the walking pole here, and then on the other side I wrapped it around the dowel that I stuck in the end, and I'll show you that here in a minute. For the ridge line, I used a piece of Zing-It, and this end is a soft shackle as well, so it goes over the diamond knot. And then coming down to this end, it's a whoopee sling, and I tied one of those whipping knots to keep it up and out of the way. You can see there's the whoopee part, and then I lark headed it onto the back side of this whoopee on this side. So you can kind of see here on this side, that's the back end of my handle for my pole that I inserted a dowel rod into. It fits quite nicely through there, 3/8 inch. And then I have the piece of Grosgain that on this side it wraps around the outside, and that has kept it from sliding down. One thing I did notice is, I don't know if we'll be able to see it or not because it doesn't seem to want to focus too well. You can kind of see some light through there. I believe this material is starting to stretch. Well, not stretch, it's actually, I think, starting to fail. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to find another material. I got this material at Joann's. It was in the suit lining section. It's 100% polyester, but I think it might be a little bit too light, and I don't know if we can see through here. You can see my hand moving there. That's through the fabric. So it's a very light fabric. It would breathe nicely, but I'm afraid it's going to be a little bit too thin. Okay, let's talk about spreader bars. One of the downsides to a bridge hammock is that you need spreader bars on the head end and foot end, and that tends to be additional weight. And while I want to try to be comfortable, I also want to try to keep the weight down as much as I can. So that being said, I use the cheap Wally World trekking poles, and for this I've just unscrewed the baskets. I really like the cams on them, which is why I kind of stick with them, and the weight seems fine. They're heavier than a lot of the trekking poles that you can get, but I like that feature, and they seem comfortable, and frankly they haven't fatigued me. So I decided to try to use them as spreader poles and see how well it would work. Whenever I compact this all the way down, when I bring the pieces all the way until they connect together, that brings me to, let's see, it's 23 inches. And 23 inches at the tip seems to work well so far for a foot end. I was looking for 32 inches on the head end and around 23, 24 inches on the foot end, based on Grizzly Adams, his videos and his recommendation as far as that goes. Now Grizzly Adams, what he'll do is he actually cuts the hammock skinnier at the foot end. TeeDee doesn't do that. He uses the same width top and bottom, but he uses a smaller foot end pull as well. And evidently, from what they're saying, by having a shorter foot end than a head end, it helps with some of the rotational forces on it. It makes it less tippy. So I wanted to save weight there. I also didn't want to have a big, bulky, heavy system. And I saw a bunch of different ideas and good ideas, but I was trying to keep it as simple as I could. And so what I came up with was using a red, because you know they're color coded, a red electrical tie. And I got one that has little handles on it, just to give me some extra width so that there was no way that my washer could slip down. And then I got a 3/8 inch washer, and that fits on nicely. And then what I did was I got some 3/8 inch dowels, you know, the little ones that when you put two pieces of wood together you can drill holes and glue those in. And I'm using that for the handle end. So the way it kind of works for me is this just fits nicely over the end of the hiking pole tip. And again, I took the basket off only so that it would have no chance of snagging on the fabric in case when I moved. So this part will go into the hammock suspension. This will rest in there, and then on the back side, which is kind of different than when I saw anybody else do, when I looked inside here, I could see that I had a little bit of space in this rubber, and so I took a chance, figuring it was only a $12 pull, so if things went terribly afoul, I wouldn't lose too much. And what I did was I drilled a 3/8 inch hole in the end, and so whenever I take the dowel, I just stick it in there, and I essentially have a big washer with a 3/8 inch opening, the same as I do here. A washer around a 3/8 inch dowel essentially. And so with the short end, I just collapse them all the way down, and I close the cams, and that's solid because I got all the connections pressed together. So the pull itself isn't taking any weight, and the cams aren't taking any weight. On the longer pull, what I did was the short piece comes down until I have solid contact, same as on this one. And then for the longer one, what I did was I figured out the right distance, and then I cut a piece of dowel that just fits perfect inside there, and that serves as a stop. Okay, so now I have the right size for the head end, and it's actually that particular dowel still makes it shorter than it is whenever I normally carry it as a trekking pole. So it didn't really have any impact on me there. And again, on this side, I'll just have this. Now, what I ultimately hope to do is I'll drill a hole through this dowel. I'll drill a hole through the washer, and I'll drill a hole probably through one of this little handle, and use some really thin cordage and tie it off so that it's attached to the hammock. So I won't have to worry about losing these little bitty parts. But this allows me to use my trekking poles as a spreader bar, and at a weight penalty of less than an ounce. It's 0.8 ounces. So that seemed to be a pretty reasonable way to go as far as spreader bars.